I am here with the CEO of Physio4d. Can you tell us just a little bit of an intro about what it is you do and why it's so awesome?
For the opportunity.
Yeah.
My name is Javad, and I'm the CEO and co-founder about myself in Canada, and followed by 1 year postdoc in the area of information visualization. And my co-founder, Ella, she also finished her master in the area of computational media design from the University of Calgary. And actually, the idea of Physio4d started and roots back to our project with Ella, that we wanted to use graphics, animation, and visualization in area. The problem that we found out was that the majority of the time of the clinicians are spent on manual assessment of the patient's progress this day. We try to help clinicians to, which are always pressed by time, to use that time more efficiently, the time that they spend on the assessment of the patient. Physio4d enables that. Is we have different tools and different platforms. We have an onboarding app from the time that patient enters into the clinic. We streamline the patient onboarding, and then we have the most upfront thing, user vision to motion tracking. And that translates clinical outcomes through machine learning technology that we allow those measures that are access to train and set up state exercises, and we short this again. The time we prescribe the physician. Ultimately, we allow patients to do these exercises in an interactive and 3D environment at the clinic or at home, and physiotherapists can track their compliance. So this problem of the compliance is a big problem. Over 70% of the patient population are not compliant, and definitely we need more interactive, engaging tools to change that behavior. And Physio4d is trying to achieve that as our end goal.
Cool, that's really awesome. So, so you guys are using computer vision in order to help, help patients be more compliant in their physical therapy. So, how many people do you know that go to physical therapy in Canada or in the United States?
We have an aging population, so most of the baby boomers who are between 52 and 70 right now are exposed to some chronic pain. So the estimate shows that right now 1 out of 5 Canadians are over 65 in future. So definitely there need to be tools to, for example, if fall in the seniors is a common thing, and that's the major cause of the injury-related hospitalization. So there need to be predictive tools that prevents them to falling. So that's one area. But the economic burden of the chronic diseases is huge as well. There are some type of injuries that, for example, fibromyalgia is one of them, as well as there are lots of people who undergo joint replacement, knee replacement, or hip replacement, and they need to also be somehow under the supervision of a physiotherapist. The numbers are in billions in terms of the market size, and it's not like that only aging population or older adults need physiotherapy. Even myself, 2 years ago, had a shoulder injury. I visited my physiotherapist, and I faced personally with this problem that even I knew that I should follow some of the exercises that my physiotherapist recommended me, I easily forgot to do that. And that's mainly because of the lack of the technology. And it was not an engaging process for me, and I easily could overlook that, and it now has become a chronic pain. I used to every day suffer from this shoulder pain, and that's my personal motivation as well, to make it more engaging for anyone to avoid this physiotherapy, easy exercises to be forget and become a big problem in future.
I bet. So what kind of physical therapy can Physio4d help with? So is it mostly shoulder things? Do you work with knees? Can you tell us a little bit about the types of therapy somebody can receive and help to be in compliance so they don't have long-term issues like you?
That's a good question. We don't want to limit ourselves, as I mentioned, even in terms of the patient population. We don't want to limit ourselves as well as the kind of area of the injury. But because we need to start from somewhere, our current pilots are in a clinic that is expert in the back and neck injury. Specifically, they have an orthopedic surgeon that is specialized in those kind of back and neck surgery. So mainly upper body. We are starting from upper body, shoulder included, and we test this solution right now on those type of patients. But definitely in future it can be applied to any even area, not necessarily physiotherapy, any area that needs motion tracking, sports medicine included, even high performance athletes can definitely benefit from motion tracking, any application. So that's again vision for future, but we need to start from something that there is immediate need. And because we want to start from a clinical value upfront, it's important for us to be partnered with the clinic, and the clinic that we found is specialized in this upper body surgery and post-rehabilitation.
Great. That sounds like a really great plan. It's good to know there's a wide variety of ways that people can use Physio4d. Can we go ahead and see a demo? I think we have some things pulled up from you guys from before. Would that be okay?
Oh, sure. That's the original prototype that we can start chronological order as an start of the progress. Yes, that's me talking about the original prototype that we created last summer, basically. And as you see, I can touch it, shall we?
Did you know that every 13 seconds, an older adult visits an emergency room for a fall-related injury? Physio4d, we try to reduce these injuries by a mobile app that patients can download the 3D exercises and view them from multiple angles, scale them, zoom, or rotate them, or see them with different visualizations like a skeleton or skin. And also we allow them to scan their body during these exercises and show them some suggestive feedback using computer vision, such that they can be corrected their exercises. And also underneath of that, we collect some of the biometric data and some analytics that can be shown to their patient, to their physiotherapists using these diagrams, and provide their physiotherapists an assessment, a more realistic assessment of the progress of the patient. So if you want to
yes, as you see, we thought one area that can probably engage patients more to the rehab exercise program would be using more interactive and 3D UI. But this version that you see is more toward the accuracy in the clinic. So we really want to show the measurements that are necessary in the initial uptake of the clinics. And as you see, this one is for front side. This one is for the side view. And by selecting the joint that need to be assessed, clinicians can do these objective measures in a matter of seconds, and we record them into the patient portal. So this is the first, to be honest, the first exposure to Physio4d by patients. So we found that it's better if we start from the initial uptake in our prototype and product development now. So that thing is now down the road, and we want to start with something that has more clinical value. Definitely building a good tool for physiotherapists can provide some revenue for us, provide kind of insights that down the road we can transfer those knowledge to our future triage prototypes. And that's why we changed the course. That's normal for any startup to really start from somewhere that there is more need.
That's great. I know I have a bunch of family members, and having these exercises accessible at home where they can make it easier for them to accelerate their overall health and recovery. I know I've read studies on being able to see this video feedback, and that can make a huge difference, because it's, even when you're in physical therapy, somebody can say, hey, like raise your arm a little bit more, but it's not until you're really looking in the mirror and you see what it is you're doing and you make that connection that it makes a big difference. And being able to see this on a computer or see it lined up with what is appropriate, I think it can be.
Exactly. And I believe the visual feedback is more informative than anything written on a paper. Currently, the way that the physiotherapy exercise is provided is through just sketches, and it's not easy to follow them for patients. So our approach is to make it more interactive, so patients can see in real time visual guidance. And if, for example, they raise their arm more than the current range of motion, it will give them visual feedback not to do that, so in order not to hurt themselves. And that's the, I think, cool factor that patients in clinic find, yes, someone can now monitor them. And that definitely is a time saver for physiotherapists. Ultimately, the goal is that to build Physio4d as an assistive tool that with minimum supervision, it can by itself correct as well as guide and instruct patients and monitor them, provide valuable insights for physiotherapists. But we need to first pilot in the clinics with kind of exercise room for physiotherapists to still be involved in the loop.
So if physical therapists want to utilize your platform, how can they be in touch? How can they get access to it? How can they start working with you all?
Currently, we are looking for more pilots. Definitely, the more tests that we run, we find out what would be the next feature sets that we add. We want to start from the core set, which is that upfront intake and motion tracking and specifically range of motion. There are other areas like functional assessment that they can do it in clinic for more full body assessment. And for now, I'm thinking the MVP that we see as the next step based on our communication with physiotherapists would be input from these exercises that are assessed, these are just objective measures, to automatize the exercise prescription. That's another time-consuming part, because physiotherapists, even they spend lots of time on manual assessment, have hard time to find out which exercise to choose. There are tons of exercises, and it's a kind of expertise, and that's more kind of subjective. And the physiotherapists that are more expert, maybe they provide a good exercise regimen, and there is no standard way that people know for this particular type of injury what kind of short listed set of the exercises proven to provide the best outcomes. So our immediate next step in our MVP2 would be to make that we use machine intelligence to based on the kind of records that we gather in these pilots, train that algorithm, and we are doing that right now manually, but definitely computer vision as well as machine intelligence can save a lot of time and automatize that, such that even unprofessional or not trained assistant can use our platform to give a very good prescription to the patients by any type of the injury. So that's a huge value and huge time saver from the. So we reduce the load from the high cost physiotherapists with 20 years of experience, targeting mid-level technicians and clinicians with the use of the technology to provide the same value even in future. Some kind of predictive analytics I see would also shorten the rehabilitation time of the patients as well, because based on these facts and figures, algorithm can train and provide the most clinical valid outcomes.
So in the future, would you guys be able to use machine learning to, I know you just talked about machine learning, but use it to find out which exercises and what sort of angle of the legs is really causing the most benefit, or what sort of positions are creating the best therapy prescriptions as well?
Is that something in terms of the assessment or rehab?
So in terms of rehab. So for instance, I know there are a bunch of different schools where you learn different physical therapy techniques. So is it something in the future you guys have considered looking at these exercises for these injuries have been most beneficial when there's 80% compliance? And then do you write that and give that back to?
Definitely. And that's why I said we need to gather a lot of valid data through time, and it's not easy, specifically in the health field, because there are lots of regulations, and accessing to all of this data needs a lot of pilots and clinical trials. So I believe it's in the scale of, let's say, 100,000 input, such that we can provide the valid prescriptions. Even in the general medicine, you see that it's not yet accurate that for this type of the kind of disease there is a real prescription. So in a sense, we want to be the first player in the market that claims to be able to provide up to very good accuracy, standard and proven set of the exercises. When a patient is assessed, we have a proven set of the exercises that definitely can provide the best outcomes. So that's the holy grail of Physio4d.
Sounds great. That sounds really awesome. So is there anything else you want to tell us?
Sure. I think the reason that we chose this way of 3D exercises specifically, we record these exercises in a motion capture studio, and we attach 70 reflective markers to the body of a model performer and use 8 Vicon infrared high-definition cameras to track these motions for having the best accuracy, because we want to also provide suggestive guidance to the patients in clinic or at home to correct their exercises. And we should have a canonical ground truth, and this high definition accurate data that we recorded, around 100 of them so far in studio, will provide us a rich 3D database. And I see currently we are using them just for comparison with the live feed from the vision component, but in future there are lots of options that those can be reused. For example, gamification is one area that we see there is a competition right now on providing gamified UI to engage people. And ultimately, down the road, as I mentioned, we want to touch the patients, and compliance is a big issue. And one way I think that I see future advances in graphics and animation can enable people is that we will be able to have this motion tracking in everywhere, and specifically with these wearables as well as the VR, AR technologies like Luminara. I believe there are interesting opportunities in future that people's healthcare can also be improved. And one way that I see there is a good potential is that imagine that physiotherapy currently just eyeballs the patients. For example, they ask patients to just walk around the aisle and they see if the gait is good, if there is off balance, if they're not. And that's all again by naked eye. If there is the enhanced glass that they can observe, if with some kind of gizmos or some visuals added to the real walk of the patient, they can provide a more accurate assessment at clinic. So one way is, for example, to let's say it's just an idea. We compare the normal walk that we have recorded in a, as I mentioned, in a 3D, in a standard, accurate by a normal person, alongside with the walk of the person, and visually compare them in the eye of the physiotherapist to see if they are off balance and what areas are need to be worked on. That's in terms of the diagnostics. Also in terms of the rehab, the same principles can be used by patients, so they can wear the glasses and see themselves at home in a gamified environment. And instead of going to a gym, they can now practice with a real avatar of a body or a coach. So they can just follow the movements of, as I mentioned, really accurate data now transferred to the 3D avatar in a gamified environment. So it is another way that they can feel present in a clinical environment or a gamified environment to correct their movements, follow the virtual avatar, and be engaged.
Oh, that sounds so awesome. I can definitely see why people would want to use that. That's great. Very cool. And so can you tell us, is there an email address people can reach you at?
Oh, sure. Founders@physio4d.com.
So founders@physio4d.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I can't wait to see people using our glasses to do physical therapy. I think it would be really great and wonderful. And yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity. And as I mentioned, we need to disrupt the healthcare, and the way that we are exploiting that is using graphics, animation, and computer vision. And definitely there is overlap with other cool technologies like yourself, Luminara. So I'm looking forward to more partnerships in the future. But thanks for the time.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Thank you. We're excited to see you guys be successful.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.